Loy crept quietly down the staircase, his pulse pounding in his ears. He was still dressed in his sister's school uniform, a neatly pressed blouse, pleated skirt, knee-high socks, and polished shoes. Every step felt risky, and he hoped he could slip back to his room before anyone noticed. His hope vanished the moment he reached the bottom step. His mother sat in the living room, a magazine resting on her lap. The second she looked up, her eyes locked onto him. Her expression hardened instantly. "Loy," she said sharply, "what exactly are you wearing?" The words struck him like a slap. He froze in place. I was only trying it on," he replied nervously. His voice trembled, and he could feel his cheeks burning with embarrassment. His mother stood slowly and crossed her arms. "Take it off immediately." Loy swallowed hard. His fingers shook as he reached for the buttons of the blouse. "I don't understand why you would even think about doing something like this," she continued. "Boys do not wear girls' clothes. This behavior is completely unacceptable." Every word made him feel smaller. He nodded silently, unable to find the courage to defend himself. Tears threatened to spill from his eyes. Deep down, he knew he should feel ashamed. Yet mixed with the shame was another feeling, one he couldn't explain.
Curiosity. Excitement.
A strange fascination he had never been able to understand. "Go upstairs and change," his mother ordered. "We'll discuss this properly when your father comes home." Without another word, Loy turned and hurried back to his bedroom. Once inside, he shut the door and leaned against it. His thoughts raced. Why had he wanted to wear the uniform in the first place? Why had it felt so different? Why couldn't he stop thinking about it? He didn't have answers. All he knew was that something inside him had changed. And somehow, he sensed that this moment would have consequences far beyond what he could imagine. That evening felt endless. Loy sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor while waiting for whatever punishment might come next. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The door opened. His mother entered. The serious expression on her face told him immediately that this conversation would not be pleasant. "Loy, we need to talk." He nodded nervously. She remained standing while he sat frozen on the bed. "What happened today cannot be ignored," she said firmly. "I am deeply disappointed." Loy lowered his gaze. "I never expected this kind of behavior from you." The disappointment in her voice hurt more than shouting ever could. He wanted to explain himself. He wanted to say that he didn't fully understand why he had worn the uniform. But the words refused to come. "As a consequence," she continued, "there will be changes." Loy looked up. His stomach tightened. What kind of changes? His mother took a deep breath. "If you insist on wearing girls' clothing, then you will experience exactly what that means." Loy stared at her in confusion. "From now on, you will wear your sister's clothes at home." His eyes widened. "What?" "You heard me. And Mom, please. No arguments." The firmness in her voice made it clear the discussion was over. Loy felt trapped. The decision had already been made. His opinion didn't matter. As his mother left the room, he sat motionless. Fear settled heavily in his chest. The future suddenly felt uncertain. And yet, beneath the fear, that same strange curiosity remained. The following days passed in a blur. Every morning brought new challenges. His mother insisted that he wear feminine outfits around the house. At first, he resisted. Everything felt unfamiliar. The fabrics, the hairstyles, the expectations. Even the way he was expected to sit, walk, and speak felt different. One afternoon, he found himself standing before the bedroom mirror. For a moment, he barely recognized his reflection. His hair had been carefully styled into soft curls. A light layer of makeup highlighted his features. A pastel blouse rested neatly against his shoulders. A skirt fell to his knees. On his feet were shoes with small heels that still felt impossible to walk in comfortably. The reflection staring back at him looked nothing like the boy he remembered. Loy examined every detail. Part of him felt embarrassed. Another part felt strangely fascinated. It was as though he were looking at an entirely different person. Someone unfamiliar. Someone new. He wasn't sure whether he hated it or was simply afraid of it. His emotions became increasingly complicated. Some days he felt angry. Other days confused. And occasionally, He caught himself feeling curious about what it would be like if people accepted him this way. Those thoughts frightened him more than anything. Weeks later, the changes had become impossible to ignore. Loy's daily routine had transformed completely. Simple tasks required adjustment. Walking gracefully, managing long hair, balancing in shoes that were never designed for comfort. Each day felt like a lesson in adapting to circumstances he had never expected. Yet despite everything, questions continued to fill his mind. Who was he really? Why had wearing the uniform sparked such powerful emotions? Why did embarrassment and curiosity seem to exist side by side? The more he tried to ignore those questions, the louder they became. Every glance into a mirror reminded him that he was standing at a crossroads. His old life felt increasingly distant. His new reality felt confusing and uncertain. And somewhere between those two worlds stood Loy, searching for answers he wasn't sure he was ready to find. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be misunderstandings. There would be difficult conversations. There would be moments of fear, doubt, and self-discovery. But whether he liked it or not, the path before him had already begun. And with every passing day, Loy found himself moving further into a future he could never have imagined. Loy sat quietly on the edge of his bed, lost in thought. His emotions felt tangled together in ways he couldn't fully understand. Part of him still carried resentment toward his mother for forcing changes into his life that he had never asked for. Yet another part of him couldn't ignore the strange excitement that sometimes surfaced whenever he dressed in feminine clothing. The feelings confused him. He didn't know why he reacted the way he did. Wearing women's clothes should have made him uncomfortable, but instead it awakened something inside him, something he had spent months trying to suppress. The mixture of embarrassment and fascination left him questioning everything he thought he knew about himself. After several minutes of staring at the floor, he slowly stood and walked over to his dresser. His hands trembled slightly as he opened one of the drawers. Inside were a few feminine garments he had secretly kept hidden away. He hesitated before reaching for them, wondering if he was truly ready to continue down this path. Despite his uncertainty, curiosity won. He slipped into the clothing and adjusted everything carefully before turning toward the mirror. For a moment, he simply stared at his reflection. His cheeks grew warm with embarrassment, yet there was also a spark of excitement in his eyes. The person staring back at him felt both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Over the following weeks, Loy struggled with these emotions. Some days he felt ashamed and wished he could forget everything. Other days he felt liberated and eager to explore this side of himself further. The internal battle exhausted him, but eventually he realized he could no longer keep running from his feelings. Standing before the mirror one evening, he made a decision. Instead of fighting who he was, he would allow himself to explore his identity without fear. He wasn't promising to have all the answers immediately, but he was ready to stop hiding from himself. With renewed determination, he opened his dresser and began sorting through different outfits. One by one, he experimented with various styles, discovering what made him feel comfortable and confident. Each new outfit brought a growing sense of freedom. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was making choices for himself instead of living according to someone else's expectations. Hours passed as he tried different combinations, occasionally smiling at his reflection. The experience felt surprisingly empowering. Rather than focusing on what others might think, he concentrated on how he felt. Eventually, he settled on an outfit that made him genuinely happy. Looking into the mirror, he noticed something he hadn't seen in a long time: confidence. The journey ahead would not be easy. He knew there would be misunderstandings, judgment, and difficult conversations. Yet, he also knew that pretending to be someone he wasn't would only make him miserable. Whatever challenges waited for him, he was prepared to face them. Months went by. As time passed, Loy became more comfortable with himself. He learned to embrace the parts of his identity that he had once feared. His confidence steadily increased, and he finally began to experience moments of genuine happiness. Unfortunately, peace at home remained impossible. His mother's behavior grew, increasingly controlling. She constantly criticized his choices and attempted to dictate every aspect of his life. What had once been strict parenting slowly transformed into something much more toxic. At first, Loy tried to ignore it. He convinced himself that things would improve if he stayed quiet and avoided arguments. Instead, the situation worsened. The insults became more frequent. Her attempts to control him became more aggressive. Every day felt like a test of endurance. He found himself constantly watching what he said and did, afraid that even the smallest mistake would trigger another confrontation. Living under that pressure drained him emotionally. For a long time, he felt trapped. He couldn't imagine a way out and struggled to believe that his circumstances would ever change. But eventually, the frustration and pain reached a breaking point. One evening, after yet another argument, something inside him finally snapped. He realized that he could no longer allow fear to control his life. Gathering every ounce of courage he possessed, Loy confronted his mother. He calmly but firmly told her that he would no longer accept her attempts to control him. He explained that he had the right to make his own decisions and live according to his own values. His words shocked her. Almost immediately, her anger erupted. She shouted accusations and insults, trying to intimidate him into backing down. But this time was different. Loy refused to surrender. For the first time, he stood his ground and defended himself. No matter how loud she became, he remained determined. He had spent too many years living in fear, and he wasn't willing to return to that life. The confrontation left him emotionally exhausted, but it also gave him clarity. He knew that if he wanted true freedom, he would need to leave. Over the following weeks, he quietly began preparing for a new future. He researched places to stay, saved what little money he could, and carefully planned every detail. The idea of leaving terrified him, yet the thought of remaining trapped terrified him even more. Finally, the opportunity arrived. Before sunrise one morning, Loy packed a small bag containing only the essentials. He took one last look around the house that had been both his home and his prison. His heart raced as he stepped outside. The streets were quiet, and the cool morning air filled his lungs. For the first time in years, he felt truly free. The future remained uncertain, and countless obstacles undoubtedly lay ahead, but none of that mattered in that moment. What mattered was that he had taken control of his own life. With determination in his heart and hope guiding his steps, Loy walked forward toward a future of his own choosing, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him and determined never to surrender his freedom again.